Hey everybody, Big Red Sports Network coming to you live. I'm your host Josh. Joined with me is our data analytics extraordinaire Ryan Jenkins with us tonight. Tonight we are going to be going over some playoff projection brackets. We know that there's still a lot of time left to go in the season, but it never hurts to take an early look as to what the playoff picture is looking like as it starts to shape up here, as we are starting to enter the latter part of the regular season for high school basketball. Before we get started, Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. Glad to be here.
Well,
Glad to be doing it again.
we know you've been working very hard to get these brackets together, and I'm pretty sure we can speak for everybody talking, about the subject of the brackets, and you've done a really good job of putting this together, and kind of just giving us a bit of a feel as to what we believe the playoff field's going to look like as of tonight, moving forward. If we look at some of the games that were played this week, a lot of games have been postponed and be rescheduled to next week. However, there were some games that were played throughout the week, and based on that, some of the brackets did see some minor changes from the ones that we posted earlier in the week. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the brackets here. First things first, we're going to have Ryan talk about the brackets. First off, Ryan, the thing I want to ask you is how are the rankings done? Like how does the rank for the specific teams are determined? We hear about this RPI thing all the time. So did you take a moment to explain to our viewers what the RPI system is and how it works with the rankings in particular?
Yep. So last year, the NCHSAA changed the entire format for everything on how everything works. And right now, the way it works is your playoff seeding is calculated by your RPI, which RPI is a formula of your win percentage, opponent's win percentage, and then your opponent's win percentage, and that's how teams are seeded. The formula is it's like 40% based off your win percentage, 40% based off your opponent's win percentage, and 20% is based off your opponent's win percentage. So that's how RPI works.
And we know that there's still been a lot of changes going on this year too, especially when it comes to talking about the East and West line. And we talked about it a little bit during football season, but since it's basketball season, we got a lot of new people tuning in about that. I want to take a moment to talk about the East-West line and how the regions are drawn up based on the results of the regular season.
Yep. So the way it used to work, it used to be a static line. Teams knew which region they would be in, if they were going to be in East or West before the season started. Now it's not that way. Now it takes the top 48 teams seeded by RPI and divides them by splitting it down the middle by the longitude, latitude. Sorry, brain won't go. But anyway, yeah. So this is how it works right now. This is the latitude lines right here, or longitude lines. Sorry, right? Longitude, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't worry, we're all trying to get through this right now. It's so cold outside. All of us are having a little bit of a tough time here.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. All that snow. But yeah, so basically this right here is the top 48 teams. The bottom half is in the West, and the top half is in the East here. It sorts them. It gets all the RPIs of the top 48 teams, and then divides it in half by their longitudes. Yeah. So it can change from week to week or from game to game in basketball, because if a team drops out and another team jumps in, it shifts this line. This line is constantly moving, so it's really hard to keep up with unless you know the formulas for it. So, yeah.
Well, Ryan, I know one thing we talked about when it comes to football season is, for some brackets in particular, especially for the 1A bracket, for example, you talk about football for most of these schools. A lot of these, 1A schools don't really have football teams. So you had situations where a specific team would have to travel multiple hours to go play a road game. Based on the setup for the 1A basketball bracket, do you see this kind of scenario playing out, or do you see it being a little bit more balanced compared to where it was for football season?
It works out a lot better in in most sports other than football because there's more teams, especially for basketball. Even so, right here I'm on the girls. I'm looking at the girls. There's 54 teams in 1A. I think in football we have what 22, something like that. 22 teams in 1A football, something like that. So it made the brackets be really weird, and then there were so little teams. Like you had teams scattered across the state, and it didn't work out well. I think what that one team had to drive 4 hours.
Yeah, you
like
had
East Columbus or something.
Yeah, East Columbus having to go to, I believe it was North Stokes, which that was about a 3-hour trip, and then followed up the next week with an 8-hour trip up to Robbinsville.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's not really any of that now because all the brackets are filled out. There's plenty of teams. I will say this: Hiawassee Dam is going to have a long drive no matter where they go, but just because they're so far in the western part of the state.
Well, Ryan, now that we've had a little bit of time to really talk about the brackets, go a little bit in depth, and kind of discuss some of the stuff, why don't we take a look at some of the brackets and then just kind of go from there and look at some of the rankings, but based on each classification. Let's go ahead and start off with the 1A girls.
Okay, yeah. Not real familiar with a lot of these teams. I mean, I'm becoming more familiar with Wilson Prep after they won 1A football. So that's interesting to me to see that they're also having a really good season in the 1A girls bracket here. They're number 1 in the East. Thomas Jefferson, number 1 in the West too. That's really interesting.
Ryan, is the bracket showing up for you? Because it's not showing up for me.
I'm looking at the standings right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was just checking. I was just recapping the standings. Here's the bracket right here.
Hold on a second. I don't think it's showing up for us.
Uh-oh.
Let's see here. Let's see if I can remove this and put it back in and it works. There we go.
Oh, is it up now?
Yeah, it's working now. It's the quality's a little bit blurry. Okay, there we go. We're good now.
Okay.
All right. Problem resolved.
Okay. But yeah, so yeah, Thomas Jefferson, number 1 in girls 1A. That's really awesome. They're just right down the road from me, literally like a mile away or 2. So that's pretty cool. Wilson Prep, again, didn't know anything about them until last football season.
Mm-hmm.
And then they ended up winning the 1A championship.
Well, it's like we discussed a little bit when we were talking about football season. One thing you'll notice off the bat by looking at the brackets is that you will see a lot of teams in these brackets that have at most a handful of wins making the playoffs due to the expansion of the classifications. There will be a lot of teams that make the playoffs, and you will see a lot of teams make the playoffs. Like, for example, you had the Triad Science Math and Science Academy there with 2 wins, and then you got Ascend Leadership Academy there at 1-16.
Yep, and 0-11 BonnieCon Leadership Academy. 0-11. But that's not the only surprise in the girls bracket that's like that. We was looking at one earlier in 3A. So
yeah. You want to go ahead and pull up the rankings for that once again, just to let us take a look at that again?
Yeah, I was, but I see it's not pulling up again.
Hold on a second. Let me just take it out and add it again, because that's what worked the first time. There we go. So every time you change the screen, I'm going to have to just remove it and then put it back in on the screen. So there we go.
I wonder what's causing that.
Okay, so taking a look at the rankings here for the 1A girls here. As you can see, like we talked about with the expansion of the brackets, you do have a lot of teams in there. It just looks like about the seeding from 15 to 24 in the West. The max amount of wins you'll see in that group will be 5 wins.
Yep. Yeah, there's 54 total teams here. Yep, 54. So only 6 will not make it in 1A. So,
all right. So let's go ahead and move on to the 2A girls.
Man, technology today is on a snow day too.
Yeah, absolutely. To our viewers watching out there today, we hope you are staying warm out there during these frigid temperatures and weather going on outside. I know for me here, I'm up here at App State University. The temperature outside here in Boone, North Carolina, is 5 degrees with the wind chill already being in -13. All right, so looking at the Class 2A girls, seeing that number 1 seed Cherokee and then number 2 Bishop McGuinness, seeing those two teams right there is no surprise to me. Those two teams are traditionally really good teams, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe Cherokee played Bishop McGuinness last year, and that was a really good game between those two teams. And then I also see some other notable teams like East Wilkes, Avery County. Then you got Starmount down there. I see a lot of local teams starting to pop up here as we start to get through the classifications for the girls. Let's take a look at the bracket here for the 2A girls.
It doesn't look like there's as many bottom teams like as there was in 1A. There's a lot of 5-win teams at the bottom in the West there.
Yeah. But you still see in the 2A girls, you still see quite a few teams pop up with 4 or 5 wins. So it's going to be interesting because, one thing that we noticed as a correlation, right, when we went over the football brackets is that, this is something that was kind of expected between the lower classifications. But as you got up to the higher classifications, it was not as common to see that many, 3-4 win teams make the playoffs, because once you get to those higher levels of classifications, you get, to the higher level of competition, especially, the 7A and 8A brackets. You're probably going to see a lot of teams in there, if not all of them, having at least 9 to 10 wins already.
I don't think there's any big surprises in 1A from what I've seen. I mean, I'm not too familiar with it, but a lot of these teams don't surprise me at all.
I'm trying to let it load up here for a second. It's a little blurry.
Oh, has it not been clear?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep up with it on my phone too, so I can see whenever it's not loading. Man, I tell you,
There we go.
The internet or something. This technology today hasn't been the best. I know you've had internet issues all day too.
Yeah, it's been all over today, but we're gonna try to prevail through this. We're doing a great job. We're working with what we got. Sometimes it takes a little improvisation.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and move on to 3A because at least that's a classification that I can start. I know about, I know a little about where I start recognizing some teams.
All right. Looking now at the 3A classification.
Has it moved over for you?
Yeah, I see it now, the RPI rankings.
Okay, good. Okay.
Now, just a reminder to all the people that are seeing the brackets and the RPI rankings tonight. Like I said, this is as of January 31st, which is today. This means this stuff is not finalized. There's still a lot of games to be played left in the season, and this stuff changes from game to game. So every single game it gets played, there could be a slight change in the brackets from division to division. So don't take all this stuff with a grain of salt. This is just what the playoff picture would look like if it was to end today.
Yeah, and teams can they can switch from east to west game from game. That's always interesting to me. Like we're not there yet, but the 3A and boys, Providence Grove is currently in the west, and they've been flip flopping back and forth between the east and the west.
So taking a look at the 3A girls brackets, seeing already some familiar names already. We're seeing East Surrey, Lincolnton, Mountain Heritage, Hendersonville, Polk County, East Rutherford, Patton, Shelby, Mount Airy, West Wilkes, West Davidson, West Lincoln, and Madison on the western part of the bracket. Also drawn there at a 10 seed right now, and also seeing Union Academy in there as well as East Davidson. Then you also got North Wilkes in there, sitting at the 7 seed, and then Surrey Central at the 2 seed. Now, I do remember we talked about the East-West line, particularly you said it changes from game to game. So, from the brackets that you've been able to put together so far, what bracket have you seen change or flip-flop the most with teams going from the West bracket to the East bracket?
Definitely 3A right now. Polk drops out. Providence Grove goes to the west. Polk gets back in. They go back to the east. And there's other teams doing it, but there's a lot of classes where they're really close together, like McMichael and Trinity here. I mean, they're just minutes away from each other. And if one team drops out that's ahead of them, it pushes the line down and it'll swap them over.
Yeah, I could see that the longitude there being very close. So
you know what's interesting is Providence Grove will almost guarantee be in the East in the girls bracket, but they'll probably be in the West in the men's, or they might be, which would be crazy. The girls are going to play their playoff games in the East, and the boys are going for the West.
That'll be certainly interesting and something to look out for as we continue to look at some of these brackets, because I'm definitely interested to see how the boys round up. Because like you said, the East, the 3A brackets are showing the most change between teams flipping from one side of the bracket to the other side of the bracket. So taking a look at that on the boys' side will be interesting once we get to the boys section.
Yep.
All right, let's take a look at the 4A girls.
Looks like.
Yep, so this is where we're going to see. Yep, this is where we're going to see a lot more of the coverage area teams start coming into play. Teams like Maiden, Bandy's, a lot of these teams, in the Catawba County Conference. You're going to see High Brighton make an appearance, and just going to see some familiar names start popping up on the western part of this bracket once we take a look at this bracket more in depth. So taking a look at the rankings.
Reedsville 4-8, the 45th seed in girls basketball. That surprises me.
It'll be interesting because Reedsville has traditionally in the past been in the western part of the bracket. I'm assuming in this part they're still probably going to be in the east.
Yep, they are. Yeah, I think Reedsville will predominantly be an east team now. I really do. I think in just about every bracket. Let's look at the East-West line and see how close they are. Yeah, see, I mean they're not even really all that close to the line. You know? So, yeah, I think Reedsville is going to be a predominantly East team now, which that's just mind blowing to think about. I mean, they should be in the East, but they've always been in the West.
Taking a look at some teams that we have seen throughout the year and talked about playing. Pisgah being that number 1 seed at 19-0, undefeated. High Brighton, a 4 seed. Got Burns as a 6 seed. Lincoln Charter as a 7 seed. Maiden as the 2 seed. Ashe County sneaks in at the 24 seed. East Burke at the 9 seed. Bunker Hill as a 20 seed, Bandy's at the 14 seed, Newton Conover at the 23 seed, and then Ford at the 15 seed so far as of January 31st. Like I said, a lot of these area teams from the Catawba County area, and then I forgot to mention, that's my fault for not mentioning, RS Central sitting there at the 21st seed. So a lot of teams from the area are making an appearance here in the Western bracket for the 4A girls playoff picture.
Yeah. I was surprised to see East Burke at the 9 seed. They're usually a little higher, aren't they?
Well, East Burke is at the 9 seed more than likely because of High Brighton currently owning
really
that number
good.
1 seed. Yeah, High Brighton's the number 1 seed in that conference.
Yep. All right, here's 5A. East Lincoln, North Lincoln, Hickory. Is it loading up for you?
Yeah, it's taking a second.
Wow.
Let's try it again. There we go.
Loaded up.
Yep, it's loaded and ready to go.
All right. Yeah, a lot of teams here in the West.
See, North Lincoln as a 2 seed. North Lincoln definitely looking to build off of last season where they made a deep run of the playoffs. East Lincoln and Hickory, that's all these 3 of these teams are in the same conference. So that's very interesting to see that 3 teams from the same conference make up the top 5 seeds in the western part of that bracket. And you also see J.M. Robinson, Crest. And then you also could see a team like Monroe sneaking in there, being kind of a sneaky 15-2 team as a 7 seed.
Yeah, that is wild. 15-2, 7 seed. Meanwhile, I think every team above them has more losses except for West Rowan.
Yeah.
Wow. That is wild.
Taking a look here at the bracket here as it loads up.
Yeah, it's wanting to hang up again. There we go.
There we go. So, yeah, I mean, I would probably say the number one thing to take note of here in this Western bracket for the 5A girls, the top 8 seeds, I mean, they're pretty tough across the board. You know, number 1, West Rowan being 17-0, East Lincoln 15-4, but that's a tough out. North Lincoln 15-4, that's a tough out.
Yeah.
Monroe being 15-2 as a 7 seed is interesting to see.
Yeah, the entire first round bye in the West is a gauntlet. Oh,
yes,
wow.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a gauntlet.
And then, you know, the number 9 seed sitting there at 12-7.
Yep.
But I will say this. It looks like, you know, some of these third-round matchups in this 5A girls West bracket are going to provide some really good basketball. Especially even on the east side, too. I mean, look at the east side. Yeah. You got 2 undefeated teams on that side, too.
Yeah, there's some good teams over there, it looks like. I don't know much about it. I know about Rockingham a little bit. And I'm pretty sure Southeast Alamance is usually pretty good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's some good teams over here for sure.
So that was the 5A girls bracket there. Let's go ahead and move it on to 6A.
Yeah, I've noticed the bottom of these regions have gotten better in a lot of these brackets. I mean, there's 2 4-win teams, 1 3-win team in this one. This one's a little worse than the other ones, but
Yeah.
it's not as bad as 1A was. But there's also more teams, I believe.
Well, I mean, I'm taking a look at it off the bat, and I see, a team like Alexander Central sitting there at the 1 seed. Then you got Watauga there at an 8 seed, Freedom at the 18 seed. And it just seems like it's and South Caldwell there at a 14 seed. That's a good portion of that conference making the postseason right there.
Yep.
In fact, I believe, given how McDowell has done so far, we'll look at the 7A bracket soon, but I'm pretty sure McDowell girls will be in the postseason. If that's the case, then all teams from that conference outside of, I believe, St. Stephen's will have made the postseason for that particular conference. Given if this scenario was to end today.
Watauga with the first round bye, the 8 seed. AC Reynolds 4 seed.
You got Eastern Guilford there at the 3 seed. Then you got Southeast Guilford at the 6 seed. And here's an interesting one here, because I remember we talked about this in the 6A. You posted the bracket earlier this week. Greensboro Dudley's girls were in the postseason as a West seed, but their boys were in the Eastern bracket.
Dudley, was that who you said?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm looking at it here. Yep. That's how it was.
I was unsure if their girls were in the Eastern bracket, but I know that their boys, I believe, made an appearance in the Eastern bracket in the brackets that we initially posted earlier this week.
Thing is, I'm not seeing Dudley in the playoffs for the boys. I think maybe did they? Oh no, yeah, here they are. Yeah, they're here. Yeah, they're 10-7 in the boys. Yeah, they're in the East in the boys and the West in the girls. Just like Providence Grove.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting because, seeing this kind of this playoff picture kind of play out, it's going to make it interesting, especially when it comes to travel for both teams, given that this new format is kind of just throwing everything in for a loop.
Yep.
So after taking this initial look here at the 6A girls, let's go ahead and move up to 7A girls.
A lot of brackets to go through this time around with the girls and the boys.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's interesting because, to be honest with you, Ryan, it's showing us a lot of different scenarios. I'll be honest with you, I don't think we would have anticipated to see a scenario where we'd see a girls team in the West and then a boys team in the East, but
and in multiple places too.
Yeah, and in multiple classifications.
Yep. 7A. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know a lot of these teams. Southern School of Energy and Sustainability, number 1 in the East. That's pretty cool.
All right, taking a look.
It's hung up again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's loading. He'll be. There we go.
There it goes.
We appreciate everybody that's been hanging with us with the Wi-Fi issues. It's been going around for both of us today. So.
Yeah. Your internet was out for several hours, and then
yes,
I was like, man, I hope it's up for when we stream tonight. And then 30 minutes before we stream tonight, mine goes out.
Yes, yeah, just our luck. But initial look at the 7A girls, I made the statement that McDowell make the postseason, sitting there at the 6th seed at 15-4, get that first round bye. 7A's got a lot of really quality teams in it. And it seems even, with teams, I don't know what is the lowest win total in the 7A bracket? I believe it's just 4 wins, right?
3 for Mooresville.
3 from Mooresville. Okay.
Yeah. But there's only, 2 teams, 4 wins or lower here. Everybody else has more than 4 wins. So, yeah, it's not too bad. There are some quality teams in 7A. There always are. But someone's got to be a loser.
Absolutely.
Can't.
Well, before we move on to the 8A bracket, is there anything you want to talk about with that 8A bracket? I know you talked about how it's a little bit of a smaller bracket compared to the normal brackets that we've seen so far.
Yeah, it's a little different. There's 24 teams get in instead of the 48. So it's a little different, but everything's still the same pretty much. It all works the same. You have 32 teams total in the 8A class in women's basketball, or the girls. So it's about the same. There could be some long travel distances in the playoffs. That can happen when you have smaller brackets. It doesn't look too bad though. Yeah, they're not too badly spread out. It doesn't look like so. Yeah, I don't think there'll be much there.
Taking a look at the standings here for the 8A. As you can see, you got 12 teams on both sides, which fits that 24 team total there for the bracket. You see a lot of really quality teams here, and I would probably say that this is probably one of the best all-around brackets that you'll see, given that the worst team in this bracket sits at 7-13.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of good teams in there. Man, I tell you, the girls bracket in 8A is a bit different, It's not the same teams I'm used to seeing across the board.
Trying to give your screen a second to share. There we go.
Is my camera freezing a lot too? Do we think it's my internet here?
Yeah, your camera's fine. I just think it's just a screen share.
No, okay.
We'll work through it. We got time. I got time. It's Saturday evening. It's snowing outside. It's not like we got anywhere to be.
Yeah, that's true. Too much snow out there, that's for sure.
But yeah, looking at the upcoming schedule, I mean, given the impacts of this winter storm, there's a possibility that we may not be having games played within the next few days. But I would be surprised if that was the case. But crazier things have happened. So I'm not going to make the proclamation that we're going to be missing out on a week of basketball, but there's possibility that some games will be moved to a later date, and it'll be interesting to see what the NCHSAA does with basketball season, because there's already been a lot of teams up here in the mountains that have had to reschedule games, back to back to back. And so it'll be interesting to see if the NCHSAA maybe extends the season by a week or not.
Yeah, and you got conference tournaments starting in like 2 weeks,
Yeah, and it could
back a little bit.
It either presents the idea that conference tournaments either get pushed back, or there's a possibility that conference tournaments might not be even played, and whoever wins the regular season conference tournament probably is probably just the conference champion rather than having a conference tournament.
Man, I hope that doesn't happen. I was looking forward to seeing some conference tournament play, especially with all the new brackets and stuff.
Yes, well, and that the Catawba County bracket, the Western Piedmont 4A 5A conference. Really good teams across the board in both the men and the women's side. So, those are going to be really good games day in and day out. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going down the road, but we're not going to try to think about 3 weeks ahead, and we're just going to take it a day at a time. But having taken a look at the brackets, we're moving on to the boys' brackets, where we're going to start with the Class 1A brackets. First off, with the RPI rankings.
If 1A will load for us. There we go. Advanced Charter was just a wagon this year in 1A. Still hanging up, huh?
Yeah. There we go.
There we go. Hopefully. Hasn't popped up for me yet.
Yeah, it takes it a moment.
There you go.
Oh,
right.
Lord.
All right. Yeah, so Advanced Charter, just a wagon in 1A this year. They got a pretty sizable lead in RPI on Robbinsville. I don't see them catching them in RPI, but luckily for them, it doesn't matter because Advanced Charter's in the East.
It only matters if they meet in the state championship.
Yeah, it only matters and there's a good chance of that actually. So
Yeah.
yeah, there is a good chance of that. Yeah, but there's a pretty big gap. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen that big of a gap in RPI before on these standings. I mean, that's a huge gap. It can be overcome for sure, but it's going to take Vance having a bad stretch or Robbinsville going on a win streak, or both of those combined, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and take a look at the team rankings for the East and the West, just to get a better view of that. So
I'm on it.
Oh, well, just take it for. I guess it just took it forever to get over to that then. But look at the West, the 1 seed being Robbinsville, and then the East got Advanced Charter. You see some pretty quality basketball teams here, and the one thing that really stands out to me about this 1A bracket, this is just one of my nitpicks here. Seeing Bonnie Cone make the playoffs here at a 2-10 record, that kind of just stuck out there as a sore thumb right there.
Yep. Yeah. And you notice they're the 16 seed too.
Yeah. Above
they're
a
not
team
even
that's
at
a 7-9. Above a team that's 7 or 9 too.
Yeah. That's the RPI for you. They've played a gauntlet of a schedule. And
I think that is probably the biggest difference in wins that I've seen, that teams jumped somebody because of RPI.
Yeah, that is a huge difference right there. Yeah, they must have played a gauntlet schedule, a bunch of 6A teams, good quality teams with good records. Yeah, that is. I mean, here's a 5-win team, a bunch of 5-win teams down, up here too. Wow.
Now, for those of you that are wondering, for these little brackets, we will be posting something about these new updated brackets here soon, within the next few days. And as the season goes by, we'll probably continue to take a look at these brackets weekly and post a weekly update on these brackets, and hopefully have an update show before conference tournaments are played and then after conference tournaments are played, as those final results come in from the conference tournaments, that will finally put together what the official bracket is going to eventually look like.
Yeah. And one thing, since I'm starting back on the boys here, I don't think I made this clear before. These brackets are as if the season ended today. These aren't predictions or projections. This is where they stand right now, as if the season ended today. So these are just the playoff pictures for if the season ended today.
I'm trying to wait for the bracket to load up for me a little bit better so I can read it. I should probably just pull it up on my computer and just read it off.
Well, I mean, if the viewers can't read it, we probably shouldn't either, I guess.
I guess, yeah. Hold on. Let's give it a little bit longer to try to see if it'll load up, and then we'll talk about some matchups. Um, Once again, when you get to these like 1A and 2A, you're going to see a lot of teams that most of our viewers aren't very familiar with, because most of our area teams will be in those conferences between the 3A through 7A divisions.
East Columbus comfortably in the East this time around.
All right, seeing some of the playoff brackets in the West, you'll see in the first round Hiawassee Dam playing River Mill Academy. You know, Hiawassee Dam, if they win that first round matchup, which, you know, you play a 1-17 team, you probably should win. That's going to be a long trip to Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, like I said, it's going to be a long trip for them pretty much anywhere they play.
Yeah.
They're so tucked away over there.
Get Clover Garden School will be at Bonnie Cone. That's the 7-9 team at the 2-10 team. I don't know how to feel about that if you're a 7-9 team going to play a 2-10 team and having to travel there in the first round of the playoffs. I don't know how I'd feel if I was a coach.
Yeah. I do wonder if we'll see some teams drop out.
Yeah.
You know.
Then you got North Stokes at Winston-Salem Prep, the School of Science and Math Morganton at Nantallaha. I'm gonna don't Chris don't give me a hard time in the comments.
I've never seen that school name in my life.
I've never seen that name before, so don't give me a tough time there. And if someone happens to be watching this that knows how to pronounce that, by all means, tell me how it's pronounced.
I've worked on these brackets a lot, and I deal with these school names on a daily basis, and I have never seen that school name.
That's certainly the first time I've ever seen that, and that's that just really kind of threw me off immediately when I saw it. Then you got Highlands at Summit Charter Academy, Ascend Leadership Academy at Bethany Community, Blue Ridge Early College at Phoenix Academy. And Ryan, what's that 18C game right there at the very bottom?
Sorry, what? I was reading
on the west,
the pronunciation of how to say the school name. Nantahale. Or
Nantahale.
Yeah.
Nantahala or Haley. Sorry, everybody. I do not claim to be a professional at pronunciation.
Sorry, what was that you was asking about?
Oh yeah, I was just wanting you to scroll down so I could see that last one. So you got Carolina International at the College Prep and Leadership Academy for the western part.
Yep,
all right, so taking a look at those western parts, let's actually take a look at the 2A West, or the 2A bracket here, and see how that one's coming together.
I'm not sure when I'll post brackets again, because there's not been a ton of changes. There's been some changes, and I'm not sure that there will be a ton in the next week with all the games getting postponed. So maybe it's hard to say when we'll post another bracket. Maybe next Friday? I'm not sure. What do you think, Josh?
I think we'll have to wait and see when some games get played. I'm pretty sure there will be a couple games played next week, but you probably want to wait until like a handful of games have been played before you want to post an updated bracket. So I would we'll probably be under the wait and see aspect of things over the next few days, especially with this winter weather still continuing to move through the Carolinas. So we don't know how long it's going to be until there's another high school basketball game played, because this snowstorm seems to have dropped at least 6 to 10 inches of snow anywhere west of Greensboro.
All right. Hopefully everything's loading up for you. I think it might be stuck in the mud again.
Yeah, what I've been doing is I've just been removing it and adding it back to the stream, so that way it kind of loads up for us. see if just give it a couple seconds. It did bring it up this time. Just got to get it to render everything properly. Once again, everybody that's watching us tonight, thank you for tuning in. Take a look at our first look at the bracket so far of what we believe the postseason is shaping up to look like as we enter the final stages of the basketball regular season. There's a lot of basketball still to be played, but this is just some brackets and some ideas of what a bracket would look like for each classification if the season were to end today. Yep. Let's try it again. See if it'll work this time. There we go. There we go. All right. So looking at the 2A boys in the Western part, in your number one seed is Queens Grant at 22-3. A team having already played 25 games this season. That's a lot of basketball that they've already played.
Yeah, and look at that RPI lead too. Holy,
that's what, almost 0.15 difference.
0.05, yeah, which is it's a pretty big difference. It's hard to make up that much. Once you start getting over 0.03, it starts becoming not really possible. Getting in that realm, it happens, especially if a team falls off or something. But it's a pretty big lead.
Well, looking at the East too, you got Northwest Halifax Collegiate and Technical Academy at the number one seed with a 13-3 record. You got quite a bit of teams, kind of lingering around that one seed. You got one team sitting there at 15-4. Anything could happen probably right there, but that RPI seems to be the main difference maker there between those two teams, between the 1 and the 2 seed.
Yeah.
See here. Let's take a look and see if we could get the
bracket
to pop up for us.
Yeah. Tarboro.
All right, here we go. So for your first round matchups here for the 2A boys first round, you'd have Highland Tech visiting Hayesville. You would have East Wilkes at Piedmont Classical, South Stanley at the Community School with Davidson, Bradford Prep at Allegheny, Cornerstone Charter Academy at Swain County, Cherryville at Christ the King, Corrivian Community at North Rowan, and then Mitchell at Albemarle. Oh, Lordy. This snow day is not helping me at all.
I know. I will say, it looks like there's going to be some pretty good games in the first round here.
There's really not a lot of difference between teams. Like, it doesn't seem like there's a significant win gap between one team to the other.
Yeah.
Until, you look at that East Wilkes and Piedmont Classical game and then having to immediately go to the number one seed after that, sitting at 22-3. But I'll be honest with you. I mean, anybody outside of that 2 seed, I mean, there's a big gap between wins, between teams once you get past that 1 seed.
Yeah, it looks like there's going to be a lot of competitive games in the 2A bracket in the West.
All right, so moving on to look at the 3A boys RPI standings.
$3A. Yeah. Oh, wow.
So one thing you automatically see stand out right there as you look at the Class 3A RPI rankings. Farmville Central sitting at 20-0, and their RPI spread seems to be pretty big between them and that second seed there in Kingston.
Oh, yeah. Man, look at the difference in RPI there between Farmville and Piedmont. Man.
Yeah, it's almost a full tenth.
Yeah, it's almost a full tenth there. Yeah, that's big. Just trying to see if there's any surprises here. Not really. In the West, it ain't too bad. The worst team's 6-win West Caldwell, and we've talked about this before. They could be a sneaky team. They're not.
Yeah, West Caldwell sitting
well
there.
Teams.
West Caldwell sitting at 6-12, but they've had a lot of games this year where they kind of just let it slip by them in the last few moments. West Caldwell's got a lot of talent, and they got a potential to be a trap game for anybody in the first round. And I could see that being the same way with anybody that potentially plays Patton in the first round. Patton is a tough win for anybody playing them as well. But some other notable teams that you see in this 3A West, you see, Shelby at the 3 seed, East Surrey at 4, East Rutherford at 5, Hendersonville at 6, Lincolnton at 8, 10 seed Mountain Heritage, 11 seed Mount Airy, 13 seed Owen, and then 18 seed Madison, and then at the 21 and the 23 seed you got Patton and West Caldwell. So based on this, let's take a look at how the bracket would shape up.
Let's see, where was my 3A at when I posted the brackets before? Yeah, it hasn't changed a ton. There's been some teams flip around here and there, but it hasn't changed much. Nothing major.
Let's see if we can get it to pop up. It's not popping up for us. Here we go. Let's give it a second to render. So, I think once we get past the 3A bracket, there's still going to be some really good games between that 2A and 3A brackets. But I think from this point, after the 2A, this point forward, most of these first-round games are pretty interesting across the board. So, for example, here in the Western bracket, the 24 seed Union Academy sitting at 7-13, going to visit McMichael. The 9 seed is 11-3. Pine Lake Prep will be at Thomasville. Then you'll have Patton at Providence Grove, West Davidson at Owen, Wheatmore at North Wilkes, Surrey Central at Mount Airy. West Caldwell will be at Mountain Heritage. And then Madison will be at Bessemer City. And then I think there's one more that might have been the Madison and Bessemer City game that I mentioned. But some interesting first-round matchups, though, looking at those, just this casual look at it. I think one matchup that kind of stands out to me, just off the bat, seeing West Caldwell playing Mountain Heritage, that'll be an interesting game. Mountain Heritage is usually really solid, and West Caldwell, like I said, has had an up-and-down season, but they're still a really good basketball team, and I still believe that whoever they play in that first round, it could be a trap game potentially for whoever West Caldwell would travel to face in that first round.
I think early last week, Bessemer City was the 14 seed, and they had an opportunity to play Shelby again, and they beat them once already this season. So Bessemer City, Madison, that would also be a good game. But yeah, I'm kind of pulling for that. I'm kind of pulling for the Bessemer City because, everybody loves a revenge game. And then I'm pulling for East and Shelby to run into each other again in basketball like they did football.
It's going to be interesting because you see those first-round buys. You got Lincolnton, East Rutherford, Shelby, Hendersonville. Those are names that we've been familiar with here at the Big Red Sports Network for some time. Hendersonville is always a really good basketball team. Shelby traditionally is always really good in basketball. East Rutherford traditionally is always really good in basketball. And, lately they've kind of had some struggles in basketball, but this year they've really kind of come out of nowhere and shown a lot of improvement. And, they have a very young roster
And a
and
lot of size.
and a lot of size. I'm not sure if you know much about East Rutherford, but would you want to take a moment to kind of talk a little bit about East Rutherford if you have a little bit of knowledge on them?
6'9" junior and a 6'7" freshman. One of them, the junior, he's got interest from Duke, so they have a lot of size. If they can put it all together and get the talent to show. And Shelby's just a really athletic team. They beat East earlier in the season, so it'd be really interesting to see if they end up finding each other in the playoffs like they did in football. Because I know East wants revenge so bad.
Yeah,
I know they're going to be wanting it.
Yeah. Well, East Rutherford definitely got a chance here, and just an interesting thing to kind of point out, though. Long time. If this was the end of the day, just seeing Patton having to play that first round matchup, and then if they were to pull off an upset on the road, having to play a conference foe in East Rutherford in the second round. And I know one thing is for certain: if you're a team playing in the postseason, it's always tough to play a conference opponent in the postseason. No matter how many times you've played each other during the season,
unpredictable.
It's always unpredictable because of the familiarity between the two.
Yeah, always heated game, especially in basketball, man. They get heated, man. The crowds, because I guess it's just because you're all confined in one space, man. The crowds can get nasty sometimes. These big conference rivals in the playoffs. It doesn't even have to be in the playoffs, just regular season games.
Yeah.
They get rowdy.
Well, the old saying goes, it's always hard to beat a team twice in a season. It's going to make it even harder to beat a team 3 times in a season if you have to play them in the postseason.
Yep.
All right, moving on to the 4A men's.
My cat has made a guest appearance.
Let's What's the cat's name?
Leo. He's I think he's trying to say something. He keeps sticking his mouth to the mic.
Oh Lordy. Yep. All right, so looking now at the RPI rankings for the 4A boys. It's taking it a second to load. All right, so taking a look at the 4A boys West, sitting at the number 1 seed, Central Davidson at a 15-3 record, followed by Lexington Senior at 14-3. In that East Division, you got Reedsville sitting there at 12-1. Look at the difference between Reedsville's RPI and Washington. That is a big difference right there.
Yep. Yeah, that's a big one. I don't think they're overcoming that one. Reedsville's too good too, so I don't think they'll be overcoming that one.
One thing to also talk about here in the rankings is that you have Bandy's sitting at that 7 seed. You got Burns at the 10 seed, High Brighton at the 13 seed, Newton Conover at the 16 seed, Wilkes Central at the 17 seed, Maiden 18, Brevard 19, East Burke 20, Ford at 23, and Ashe County at 24. Just some names of interest for people around the area that have kept up with our page over the past few years. These are teams that we've been familiar with. Just point out, what some of the teams that have made this postseason picture. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what this 4A bracket would look like.
I'm going to say it like I said back during football season. 4A, I think it's just Reedsville. I said the same thing last season with football.
Well, I mean, it's Reedsville's got a really talented roster, and they've got the Gatorade Player of the Year on their roster. So, I mean, that's a tough team to win. And tough team to beat. But if they were to lose in the postseason, it would be because the team that beat them earned it.
All right.
It doesn't happen by just a fluke. All right, looking at the first round matchups in the 4A West boys bracket, Ashe County would be slated to face Mount Pleasant. Wilkes Central would be at Newton Conover. Forbush would be at West Oaks. East Burke would be at High Brighton. Brevard would be at Carver. West Stanley would be at Lake Norman Charter. Ford would be at Burns. Maiden would be at Stuart Kramer.
East Henderson. I'm not surprised to see them with a 3 seed. Bandies, number 7 seed.
All right, so I'm sorry, I had a distraction.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the college life for you. Moving on to the Class 5A men's. We'll take a look at the RPI rankings here. It's going to be a lot of, names that you're going to see, more local teams. You're probably going to see some East Lincolns popping up, some Hickory. You're going to see North Lincoln popping up here. So, yeah, I mean, I anticipate those will be probably – I would probably be bold enough to say that those are probably the top 8. Those 3 are in the top 8. All right, looking at the 4A men's West, at the 1 seed, you got Hunter Huss, followed by East Lincoln, North Lincoln there at the 4 seed, Hickory at the 6 seed, J.M. Robinson at the 7, Oak Grove at the 8 seed. This is interesting here, Ryan, because this is another team, Oak Grove, that I saw that in the 5A girls, they were in the East.
Yeah. That's another one. There's probably more than we've caught, too. It's going to happen quite often here, where the girls will be in one region and the boys will be in the other.
Looking at the first round matchups for this potential bracket, you would have East Rowan at North Buncombe. Concord would be at West Rowan. North Gaston at North Henderson. North Davidson at Forest Hills. South Point at Inca. Irwin at Crest. Forest View at Smoky Mountain. And then Monroe at, who is that at the very bottom?
Sorry. Playing with the cat.
Listen, I don't blame you. My dad would be doing the same thing.
Oh, we got East Lincoln at the number 2 there in the West.
Who was the bottom team there? It's not kind of popping up for me.
Monroe and Parkwood playing. The winner of that game will play East Lincoln.
Monroe and Parkwood. Looking at this bracket here, you got a lot of decent matchups. Concord and West Rowan might be a really good matchup. 2 teams locked at 9 and 8, the 16-17 game. I always view the 16 and 17 game as one of the games to usually watch. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be an interesting bracket, especially with these top 8 seeds. There's a lot of talent between all these teams, and like I said, having Hickory, North Lincoln, and East Lincoln in that top 8, I kind of figured that they would be in the top 8 given how good they are and probably the RPI that all of them have, having to play each other, and then the quality of competition they play outside of that.
Outside of Oak Grove strangely being in the West, the first round bye list doesn't look a whole lot different than the football.
Yeah. It looks almost similar to what we saw with football.
Yeah. North Lincoln and Carson obviously new there, but North Lincoln normally isn't a stranger to being good in football.
All right, let's move on to the 6A boys RPI rankings.
Who's at the bottom here? North Durham.
see here. Let's try it again. Let's put it back up. Try it again. It loaded. Let's see if it's gonna render right. All right, so looking at the rankings here for the West, sitting at the number 1 seed for the West, Charlotte Catholic at 17-3, followed by Ben L. Smith, Mount Tabor, Freedom, TC Roberson, South Caldwell, Northern Guilford, Watauga, Ashboro, and Alexander Central. Think about this though, Ryan. Freedom, South Caldwell, Watauga, and Alexander Central all come from the same conference, and they collectively make 4 of the top 10 teams in this division.
Yeah, I've seen that in a few of these, where it looks like one conference is dominating,
And then you got TC Roberson there at the 5 seed. TC Roberson's been an interesting team this year. They kind of started off a little bit sluggish, then they had some big wins throughout the season. One of their notable wins was them defeating East Lincoln a couple weeks ago.
That reminds you of anything else that was like last year with them in football? They had a slow start too, and then got on a roll.
Yeah. Let's come on now. Come on, you can load. Oh, I'm just it's taking it a minute to load for me. It's just okay. There we go. I was very confused as why it was taking a minute. All right. Let's take a look at the bracket and the first round matchups.
Anytime I see Watauga on the bracket, it just puts fear in me. And I don't even have to play them or anything.
Yeah.
It's anytime I see Watauga on there.
So first round matchups here for the 6A boys. North Iredale at Ashboro, Piedmont at AC Reynolds, Olympic at Western Guilford, Central Cabarrus at Kings Mountain, Sun Valley at Hardin University, Statesville at Ashbrook, Ragsdale at Alexander Central, and St. Stephen's at Philip D. Berry Academy of Technology. Now, here's the thing about it. The McDowell men are also in the 7A playoff picture. If that holds, and this bracket was to hold with St. Stephen's staying in the playoff picture, all the teams from that Northwestern Boys Conference, but with Freedom Watauga, South Caldwell, Alexander Central, St. Stephen's, and McDowell, every single one of those teams will have made the postseason. And, it seems like it's starting to become more common with these 8 classifications that every single team in the conference will make the postseason based on how they do during the regular season.
Yep, I agree.
All right, let's move on to the 7A. Don't worry, Ryan. I'm sorry I'm holding you so long.
It's okay. My cat keeps clawing my leg, and that keeps making me jump. He's distracting me. He's doing a really good job right now.
All right, taking a look at the Class 7A. Here's the RPI rankings. So, Ryan, out of curiosity, how often does this update the RPI changes? Does it do it after every single game, or does it do it daily? Like, how does it do?
So there's big batches that come in hourly, but there are small changes that are made like just at random intervals in time. It's whenever Max Preps enters it and everything. I think they may come in. I think the way that I think what I'm starting to notice is the way it works is it goes off Max Preps. So when it's entered, that's when it goes through. But then the hourly updates are like the official pushes for them. So it'll change again if there was any corrections to be made or anything. That seems to be how it works, because the big updates I know are hourly, but I always see it change periodically throughout. So, yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the rankings in both the East and West divisions for the 7A.
I wonder if turning this is probably way too late, but I'm gonna try turning my camera off for a second and see if it helps.
Somebody asked in the comments, says, who do you think is winning each round in the 6A? Y'all don't want to talk about that. We're not going to make any predictions on the playoff brackets right now because this could significantly change within 3 weeks. I mean, it changes from game to game. So, I mean, I'm not going to make a prediction based off a bracket that's 3 weeks out from being accurate, because there's a lot of things that can happen between now and the end of the regular season and conference tournament time. Looking at the 7A boys standings here at the number 1 seed as of right now, North Mech at 16-3. You got Mooresville at the 2 seed, Marvin Ridge at 3. In the East Division, you got the Southern School of Energy and Sustainability sitting at 17-3, followed by Lumberton and Cardinal Gibbons. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the 7A bracket. Looking at the 7A bracket here, the first round projections, South Iredale will be at Chapel Hill, Reagan will be at McDowell, Ballantyne Ridge will be at West Mech, Lake Norman will be at Davie County, West Cabarrus will be at Cuthbertson, Grimsley will be at Page, Hope will be at Richmond Senior, and then R.J. Reynolds will be at East Forsyth. And before we move on to 8A, we have a special guest here that decided to come on with us kind of on the spot. So we really appreciate him for coming on to do this. We're going to bring in Dan Crawley to help us out and talk some weather here. Hey, Dan, how are you doing this evening?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I mean, just trying not to freeze to death up here in Boone, but, we're doing fine.
It's pretty bad here in Marion, so I know how you feel.
So one thing we needed to talk about is this. We mentioned earlier in the stream, we were talking about with how bad the weather has been, because this storm system has, without a doubt, dropped a lot more snow than people even predicted it would, especially around the Charlotte area. The number one thing we wanted to talk about is impacts this storm is going to have right now for short term, and what it could potentially mean long term for the high school basketball season as we wind down the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's been a wild past couple of weeks in terms of the weather and how it's impacted high school sports. Of course, I've covered McDowell athletics. I'm real up, with what's going on with Northwestern 6A, 7A. The good thing from a basketball standpoint is that all the Northwestern teams had an open date this past Tuesday. So really so far this week, they've lost just one game. That was the Friday games. But with what we've had come in here today, we're going to be pretty much kind of starting over that cycle that we had to do at the first part of this week. It's going to take, I'd say, at least midweek before the bulk of the counties around here will be getting to any kind of school. And that might be, considered as much as has fallen in places in the Charlotte metro area, that might even be conservative. So it's becoming quickly a huge impact to scheduling.
Dan, I know one thing we talked about is, we got some time to spare before conference tournaments happen, but with potential impacts of the storm potentially affecting things to where it may push things back a week, do you think that there is a scenario where either A, conference tournaments don't get played, or B, that maybe the NCHSAA announces that they maybe extend the basketball season by a week?
Well, I think there's a good chance there may be a statewide effect to this. To answer that question, though, I think as far as like individual conferences and stuff, I think they would rather just look at the idea of, hey, let's not have a tournament and let's use what time we may need to just to make up games. Because if you don't do that and you're hard set on having a tournament, then you're probably looking at 2 straight weeks of at least 3 games for everybody. So I think if, individually from a conference standpoint, you may start looking at some scenarios where some tournaments are not played. And again, at the state level, how would you extend the basketball season? I don't know if you would extend it as a whole, an extra week. I don't know exactly how you do that, especially this year with the expansion. I think they're actually going back to 3 games that first week of the state playoffs. So that kind of makes that a tough situation too. Let's kind of cross that bridge though before we get there. But I think at the conference level, if we end up in a situation, give McDowell for an example, we have our regularly scheduled Tuesday games supposed to be at Alexander Central. And one would have to believe that's in serious jeopardy at this point. But who knows? Maybe the weather will actually work in our favor for once. We also was going to have last night's game of South Caldwell. We was going to try to make up this Wednesday. And, there you go. We may be in a situation where we can end up losing both of those before we could realistically look at playing games this week. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I think the number one thing that needs to be taken into priority is first being able to make sure that everybody is safe first before we can return to play. Make sure that road conditions are safe enough for travel for teams to get to different schools to be able to play their games.
Well, and another thing, and I know this conversation is more basketball specific, but the dual team wrestling tournaments are supposed to start Tuesday. McDowell qualified in 7A and is supposed to go to Mooresville. I don't know if that's going to happen. So, not only is it a basketball impact, it's going to start impacting state level stuff in wrestling too.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, let's talk about about road conditions. You talked about how you talked about how your prediction about, Charlotte Metro, ideally best case scenario would be midweek, but as of right now, it does not look like it's going to be midweek. It looks like it's going to take it a while. Given how much snow that has fallen, how long would you say it typically takes for conditions on the road to get back to where you can have safe travel to be able to resume playing games?
Well, if you look at what we've dealt with this week, especially here in the foothills, the fact that it was so cold all week, a lot of the back roads, never got in any condition to where you could put buses on them. McDowell went on a delay schedule Friday, but I think we were one of the few in the region that actually went on Friday. So considering parts of Mecklenburg County, for example, and even up into Cabarrus County are going to have double-digit snowfall amounts. And we're going to have tomorrow, you're not really going to get any progress. Monday, we'll get above freezing maybe for a couple hours. I can't see any substantial improvement till at least Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah. Well, Dan, we appreciate you coming on and talking about it for us about the short-term effects of this storm. I know it's been a question of some people talking about what's going to go on short-term, especially me specifically, given that with these wind chills from this Arctic blast, I noticed that tonight and specifically, some people say it's going to get down into negative 30 range here in Boone, of all places. So being able to talk some of this stuff and think when we can return back to a little bit of a normal schedule or regularly scheduled programming, it's good to hear that, maybe it might be sooner than later, but we just got to take it day by day.
Yeah, I'm not too envious of being in your position right now at Burn Boot. It's bad enough here in Marion. Wind's howling, and we got temperatures or wind chill values single digits right now. I ain't checked it in the last hour, but I'd say easily in the single digits. So, yeah, it's pretty fierce outside.
Yeah. Well, Dan, thank you for coming on and discussing this with us for a little bit. And I apologize for being able to bother you on such short notice, but we really appreciate you coming on and talking this
Oh,
with us.
it's fine, man. Anytime you need anything, I'll be willing to help.
All right. Thank you, Dan. You have a good night.
You too.
All right. Ryan, are you still there? All right. So, last thing we were talking about was 7A basketball. This was the 7A bracket. I believe Ryan might have left me, but I don't know if he's still there or not. I hope he's not AFK, which is away from keyboard, by the way.
I don't know what happened.
Ryan, are you there? There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Well, why does my camera turn my mic off?
I don't know what happened. It just like kind of just disappeared on me. I was like, oh well, no.
I turned my camera off, so hopefully it would help the screen share a little better. Wouldn't use as much bandwidth, but for some reason it muted my mic and I didn't know it.
Well, glad to have you back. So having that little weather update from our weather extraordinaire Dan Crawley of the Foothills Weather Network. Make sure to go check them out. They do a really good job of updating the area on weather throughout the foothills. And Dan Crawley also does McDowell Sports Journal, which covers McDowell athletics. Make sure to go check that out and support him there as well. Dan does a really good job of covering McDowell athletics and does a really good job with the Foothills Weather Network. So make sure to go support him and show him some love for coming on tonight and talking a little bit about the conditions. All right, Ryan, you ready to move on to the 8A classification and wrap it up for the night?
Yep. One more after Weatherman Dan.
All right, looking at the 8A classification, seeing West Forsyth at that 1 seed with an 18-0 record right there. So this is the classification that has a smaller bracket, 24 teams, 12 in the East and 12 in the West. Seeing the western part of the bracket, you see West Forsyth there at 18-0, followed by West Charlotte and Ardrey Kell. And you have Apex Friendship on the eastern side at the number 1 seed, followed by Hoggard and Leesville Road. One thing I noticed right off the bat was West Forsyth set at 18-0, and not only that, the RPI difference between them and West Charlotte.
Yeah, it's pretty big. West Charlotte has a chance, but yeah, them being undefeated, I don't see it. I don't see them catching them.
And then, seeing the last place team in the West having a 6-win record. But, when we talk about 8A schools, these 6-14 record is so, it's not really telling of how good a team could really be.
Oh, yeah.
You look at the 8A classification as a whole, it's always just a gauntlet regardless of who you're playing.
Yeah. Yeah, Mallard Creek could probably play with any team in 6A or something,
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket and take a look at the first round matchups, and we'll wrap it up here tonight. All right, looking at the Western matchups for the first round matchups, you got Northwest Guilford will be traveling to Providence. Mallard Creek will be at Myers Park. Hope County at East Meck. And then South Meck will be at Chambers. And that should wrap it up for basically what we've talked about tonight bracket-wise. Ryan, I appreciate you as always for being able to come on here and really just go in depth about talking about these brackets. I know you put a lot of work into these brackets, and getting to celebrate a successful show by getting to have a cameo from your cat.
Yeah. I had to make sure he had his guest appearance. He had to make sure he had his guest appearance.
Absolutely. Well, is there any final thoughts you want to give on the brackets before we sign out here tonight?
I don't know, not really. It's still a little bit early, I do hope we get to play some of these conference tournaments. It's looking like it's doubtful, but But when that starts heating up, these brackets will start heating up. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where these teams are going to end up, especially the East-West stuff too, because that'll be interesting to follow.
It was so. I think from off the bat, just from what I noticed, I think I noticed 3 teams through our brackets where they flip flopped between girls and boys, between who was in the West versus who was in the East. So it'll be interesting to see how much more movement we see as the season progresses. And I know a lot of people. I know somebody on the YouTube channel asked me to make predictions on these brackets, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to make a prediction on a game where you got a 1-win team in a bracket, and then the next thing you know, they're not even in the bracket. So you can't make predictions on that stuff, especially since there's going to be so much change over the next 3 weeks.
I will say this for football: I predicted every state champion except for Kit Prod. But I'm not even going to give this a shot in basketball because there's way more parity this year with basketball in places for sure, and different classifications. There's some really good parity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ryan, as always, we appreciate you for helping us out. For those of you that have tuned in to Big Red Sports Network tonight, thank you for tuning in to our first look at what we believe the playoff brackets are going to look like. As Ryan's cat is waving goodbye to everybody. We thank everybody for tuning in. Please stay warm out there. Stay safe. Stay off the roads unless you absolutely have to travel. But do not travel with how roads are looking right now. Please stay safe, stay warm, and be better people. Thank you for tuning in tonight, and we will catch y'all next time. Thank you, everybody.